Let's talk about something a little uncomfortable, but really important. This kind of hidden elitism that's woven its way into Western Buddhism. It's this whole culture, especially around the idea of Zen, that can honestly make people feel like they're just not getting it right from the very start.
I mean, have you ever had that feeling? You pick up a book on meditation, or maybe you walk into a practice center and you just feel like the really deep stuff, that's for someone else. Someone who's naturally calmer, more spiritual, or just better at it. Well, if you've ever felt that, you're definitely not alone. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack here. And see, that feeling isn't just you being insecure. The source material for this explainer puts it perfectly. So much of what gets passed off as advanced insight is just dripping with this quiet, subtle elitism. It's a vibe that really shapes who feels like they belong and who feels like they just don't have the right stuff.
So, what's the deal with this elitism problem? Well, it's more than just people feeling left out. It's about a whole atmosphere that makes something as universal as spiritual practice feel like this exclusive club, you know? Like you need a special invitation or some innate talent to even get in the door. But here's the thing you have to understand. That feeling of being on the outside looking in, it's not an accident. It's not random. It's actually the direct result of a very specific and really powerful myth that's taken hold in the West. And that myth is what we can call effortless Zen. It's this romantic pop culture idea of Zen that's all about spontaneous, cool, detached enlightenment. It's a fantasy, really, and it looks almost nothing like the deep, rich history of the actual tradition. Okay, just look at this contrast. It's wild. The myth tells you no studying, no real effort. You just kind of get it if you're one of the gifted few. But the historical reality of Zen, it was the total opposite. We're talking a deep, disciplined tradition built on studying texts, chanting sutras, community rituals, and really rigorous training. And this whole myth has led to this saying in the community that's, well, it's half joke and half uncomfortable truth. This idea of an anti-tradition, effortless practice has accidentally made Zen feel like it's tailor-made for a certain kind of privileged person, someone who has the luxury of rejecting structures they never had to rely on in the first place. So how does this actually show up in the real world? Let's dig into a perfect example of how this myth creates a kind of ranking of ideas, a phenomenon we can call Zen Exceptionalism. So the story is about a really well-respected Zen master named Uchiyama Roshi. Later in his life, he was going through some incredible hardship, and he found himself just spontaneously turning to chanting. Now, in a lot of Western Zen circles, this was presented as this huge, profound discovery.
But hang on a second. Was it really that groundbreaking? In the grand scheme of Buddhism, was a master discovering the power of chanting really some kind of brand new insight?
Not even close. And this is what makes the point so perfectly. The idea that chanting is a complete, powerful path to full awakening, that's a core, foundational teaching in other huge schools of Buddhism, like Tendai, Pure Land, and Nichiren. I mean, they've been teaching this with incredible philosophical depth for over 1,000 years. So this gets us to a really clear definition. Zen exceptionalism is this pattern where practices that are ancient and central to other Buddhist traditions are only seen as, legit in the West once some Zen authority discovers them. It just quietly erases the massive contributions of all these other schools. Okay, and this leads us right to the biggest problem for the everyday person who's just trying to start a practice. Why is this myth so harmful? It's because it yanks away the support system you need, with a source called the scaffolding. To really get this, let's look at a classic Zen saying about mountains. It lays out a path in 3 stages. First, you just see the world as it is. Then, as you practice, all your concepts start to break down. Mountains are no longer just mountains. And finally, after you achieve mastery, you come back to the world, and mountains are mountains once again, but your whole perspective has changed. And you know what's really fascinating? This 3-stage map is not just a Zen thing, not by a long shot. As you can see here, other legendary teachers like Ziyi and Nichiren described almost the exact same developmental pattern. It's like a universal roadmap for spiritual growth. And here it is. This is the critical mistake that the myth of effortless Zen makes. It takes that final stage, the master's view, where mountains are just mountains again, and it presents that as the starting point. It tells newcomers to begin where the masters finish. The analogies in the source for this are just perfect. It's like telling a brand new piano student, hey, forget the scales and theory, just improvise some jazz. Or telling someone who can't swim to just relax and float.
The advice isn't technically wrong for an expert, but without all the foundational skills, without that scaffolding, it's completely impossible and just makes you feel like a failure. So, if you have ever felt that frustration, please hear this. The problem is not you. It's not that you're bad at meditating. The problem is being handed the final chapter of the book and being told to start there, without any of the support or basic practices that get you to that point. So, what do we do about this? Where do we go from here? Well, we can start by reclaiming a vision of Buddhism that is actually for everyone, not just some kind of spiritual elite. If you look at the entire vast history of Buddhism, the message is clear. Awakening is for normal people. It can happen in a million different ways with the support of teachers and a community. It happens in the real world, in our homes, in our kitchens, and it's absolutely meant for people who don't feel naturally calm or contemplative. This completely flips the script. The goal isn't to find the one best or most superior practice. The real and frankly much more useful question is, what practice actually works for me, right now, in my life? So let's end with this thought. What if we just reimagined this whole thing? What if awakening isn't some impossible mountain peak you have to conquer, but instead it's something you find in the simple, supported, and very real act of just walking a path, one step at a time?